welcome back to my channel. Nowadays we are doing lot of financial transaction from our mobiles, as well as if you are doing some want to transfer monies from one account to another account. So those kind of things, have you think about it, like how the banks and whatever the app actually we are using nowadays, how the it's actually ensure that money transfer happens smoothly, or like something goes wrong in between, then how they are doing the rollback so that everything is on sync, right? Means, let's say there is a bank account A and there is a bank account B. Now if we want to transfer the amount from the bank account A to the bank account B, so there is a, let's say, one scenarios can happen that the we are trying to transfer the money from one account to the another account. So let's say the amount is got deducted, but actually it's not credited to the recipient bank account. Then that means it's actually big issues, because the financial transaction is a very crucial part of our daily activities, right? So how this kind of transactions are managing to ensure that money transfer happens very smoothly? Not only the money, even there are other transactions also. Like if we talked about the e-commerce applications, over there millions of transactions actually happen in a day. So how they are going to handling those transactions? Like once the order is basically placed, then actually it will deduct the inventory, it will place the order, and also amount, it will whatever the amount they are going to pay for this. So those kind of activities are maintaining in a transaction. So how this transaction basically maintained in a Spring Boot application, that I'm going to talk about. So if you are not aware of it, like how we are going to maintain this one, so in this tutorial I'm going to cover from the basic point how we are going to handling the transaction in a Spring Boot application. So what I'm going to cover in this tutorial, so basically I'm going to explain the basic and real scenarios, that how we are going to use the @ transactional ensure data integrity. A real world banking example with money transfer. Also I will share the live coding and testing to see transaction in action. By the end of this tutorial you will have some basic understanding of how you can maintain the transaction in your application so that data integrity is maintained. Okay, so without further delay, let's create a Spring Boot application, import it into your favorite editor and start coding. As I said, first of all you need to create one Spring Boot project and import it into your favorite editor. Here in this case I have used as a editor Eclipse as a editor, and I have created this Spring Boot project from Spring Initializr side. Now here we am going to build a banking system where user can transfer money between account using Spring Boot and @ transactional annotations. If anything goes wrong in between, then the transaction should be rolled back. So what I'm going to cover, that I mentioned, that I'm going to trying to cover the main feature which is basically related to the banking activity, means financial activities. Suppose you are trying to transfer a amount from some account to another account, so either the transfer will be successful or there is a no in between step, either successful or failed, then the data integrity will be consistent. So now as part of the project setup, as I said, you can create the project from the Spring Initializr side. As a dependencies here I have used the version is a 3.4.2, then like Spring Boot Starter Data JPA, because I'm going to use database. Here I'm using the in-memory database H2 as an in-memory database, but any other purposes obviously the MySQL or Oracle database is the recommendable, and Spring Boot Starter Web. So these three mostly dependencies, that these are the primarily dependencies that I have used for demonstrating transaction management. Now here the next step, I'm going to configure the database. So as I said, I am going to use this like H2 as a database, so I need to configure those properties over here. So here if you see, first of all I need to defining the data source of this H2 database. So for that, this is the data source URL for H2. Now the driver class name is the org.h2.driver. This is the username, then password this is, and we need to enable the H2 console. Okay, and this is the dialect for this H2 one. So these few properties are related to the database. These are the properties we need to add to enable or accessing the in-memory database. So that means once it will start the application, then the database will be ready. So after that, what we are going to do, we are going to create one entity class. Entity means basically that entity actually it's mapped with the database table. Means whatever the database table we are having, those table we can map as a simple entity class into our applications, right? So those are actually related to that particular table. Means whatever the database tables we have created in the backend, those are mapped to it in the entity class in the Spring Boot applications, because we have used the Hibernate over here. So here I am going to create that entity class. So if you see that account is, this is the entity and it's mapped with the entity annotations. So ID will be auto generated, so that's why it's a generated value at the rate, and the type will be identity, means it will be the unique, means it will be treated as a primary key of the account table, then account holder and the balance, and these are the like constructor over here, and then few getter and setter over here. Okay, now next what else we can do. So next basically we are going to create the repository. Okay, so this is a Spring Data JPA repository for performing database operations. Like if you see over here, this is repository and it's extend JPA repository. So JPA repository actually having all the default methods related to the database activity basically, right? Means if we want to save the data or if we want to fetch the data, so those are available under this JPA repository. So means while we are going to perform any database operations, then we need this JPA repository. Now we are going to create that service layer, where basically we are going to keeping the logic for transferring amount from one account to the another account. So here if you see, this is the service layer where we are using the @service annotation. Now we have used this account repository, and here we are using the constructor injection, means whatever the bean we have created, so the injecting of the particular bean, there is a multiple way. One of the uses the getter, either setter or constructor, or @author also. So here we are using the constructor injection, right? So if you see, within the constructor we are initializing this account repository. Now this is the basically main method for transferring the amount from one account to the another account. So this is one method. First of all, you need to notice that we have annotated this particular method with @transactional annotation. So this is actually the main thing of this account. Means if everything goes okay, then it will basically transfer the amount successfully from one account to another. If something goes wrong in between, then it will actually rolled back. So first of all, it's actually fetch the both accounts from the database, right? So this is the actually here if you see that from account ID then to account ID. So based on this account ID, it actually fetch the data from the backend database using the repository and find by ID. In case of if they are not able to access this account information, then it will throw the runtime exception with this message like sender account not found. Similar for the other account, here it will say that receiver account not found. Okay. Second, then actually it's actually checking for the insufficient funds. Like from account, if the get balance it's a less than the whatever the amount we need to transfer, it's a less than this, then it will throw that insufficient fund. It's a runtime exception over here. If this is fine, then what we are going to do, we are going to deduct the amount from this account, and we need to add the same amount these two account. Okay, so that means here basically we are going to update the balance to the respective account. From one account we are going to deduct, and from the another account we need to add that balance. Now we need to save the details into the database. In case if any error occurs, let's say this one, then it will basically roll back the entire transaction. Okay, so next we are going to create the REST controller. So actually to inject the for calling this method from the anywhere, we need to basically create one endpoint, right? So we need to expose one endpoint like this accounts and the transfer, and it's basically that accept this from account to account and how much amount we need to transfer. Then we need to call this transfer money method from the Postman or any other tool which actually support this post calling. Okay, so this is the method, and finally we have injected this account service as constructor injection, and with this method actually you are going to call this transfer money from this account and to account with this amount. Okay, so this is actually thing. Now just to prepare the dummy data, we can use this command data loader. Here actually basically we are just putting some dummy data over here, right? So this Alice and the Bob, so these are the some account. So that means once we have start this application, then initially it will insert this amount, right? So how now we are going to test this one? We need to see the database just to from the browser, and then we will use some Postman to see the data. So let's start this application, and from the Postman we will call this particular API to see that how it is working. So for starting the application, basically you need to come in the main class this one, like here, and then you need to start this particular applications as run as Java application. So once it will start, then what it will do, it will actually create these tables into the in-memory database, this account, and also as the data loader, it's actually insert some dummy data into that particular database. So these two things actually it will do. Once it will done, then we will actually call that particular API from this browser or Postman, so that we can see in real scenarios how it will be look like. So if you see that application got started, and here it mentioned that H2 console is available at this /H2 console, right? So now basically we are going to see that here. So right, and we need to do the connect. So here if you see that that account actually is got created, and here actually two details also inserted. One is for the Alice and is for the Bob. So for this Alice the account ID is 1 and for the Bob is 2, right? Now basically we are going to transfer the like amount. Okay, let's say from account number 1 to the 2, and how much amount we need to transfer, let's say 200. So here this is the from account and this is the to account. How much amount we need to transfer, let's say it's the 200. So it will be success because correct, transaction successful. Why transaction is successful? Because if we now run this one, so if you see this amount, correct, so this 300 and the 500 is the now the data, correct. Okay, so now actually we have transfer. Previously this alias having the 500 and this was having a 300, right? Now we have transferred 200 from this account to here, so it's now converted. Now we are going to transfer like another transaction which will actually basically let's say we need to transfer this 1000 amount from this account 1 to the 2. So what it will happen, so instead of 200, let's say we are trying to 1000 rupees. Now here if you see that transaction failed because due to the insufficient balance, because we don't have any sufficient balance from this from account, because this from account actually having this 300, right? So due to that it's actually not able to transfer that amount to that amount, means to this account, right? So this is the thing actually. So balance actually if you see in the database, so balance actually remain unchanged because the transaction was rolled back, right? So this is the thing that how you are going to maintain the transaction, manage the transaction, so that data will be in a consistent state, means it will actually maintain the data integrity, right? So this is the thing that how we are going to maintain the transaction. So this is actually complete like a simple example that how we are going to manage the transaction in Spring Boot application. Just to summarize the things what we did over here, like we have created account entity with balance, used @transactional annotation to manage money transfer, rollback on exception, it's actually ensure the data consistency. We have used the H2 database for testing and testing the API's calls and database queries. This is fully functional transaction management example in Spring Boot. Okay, so that's all actually about this tutorial. If you guys have anything, please do let me know in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe my channel for further notifications and all. Please press the bell icon. Thank you for your time. See you in my next videos. Bye bye.